Hello, everybody, and welcome into the Northside Bound YouTube page. My name is Greg Huss, and I am one of the co-hosts of the Cubs on Deck podcast. And today I'm hopping on live here, and I'm chatting about my most recent Cubs prospect list that I released here last week. We had Northside Bound prospect list week, and me. Greg Zumak, Todd Johnson, Rich Biesterfeld, all dropped our top 40, 50, 38, whatever prospects in the organization. Then we dropped a cumulative list on last Friday, the 20 or sorry, the what was that, the 16th, the 7th, the 15th. After that, we dropped our fan created rankings, which is always a fun thing to do. And today I'm just talking about my top 50 prospects. I released my top 50. Got plenty of comments over on the comment section at Northside Bound. Plenty of comments over at on Twitter, or I guess the website formerly known as Twitter. And so I figured I did this at the midseason prospect ratings update. I figured I'd do that in the offseason as well. So bear with me as I'm sitting here chatting today. This is only the second time I've ever. Well, I guess this is the second time I've ever gone live by myself. This is just me today. I went on the podcast one other time, just me, did a mailbag question, episode, but really it's just me today. So I can be a blabbering fool. If you guys want to drop questions in the comment box on YouTube, feel free. I think I actually got the super chat feature set up over on YouTube. So you can super chat if you want to make your voice heard a little bit more. I'm not entirely sure how that works. Ask the CHGO guys how that works. They know a little bit better than me, but this is a new feature that we got here. I'm excited to talk prospect rankings today. Bear with me, like I said, if this is just me being a babbling fool, but it will help if you guys send in questions because I may sound a little bit less stupid in that case. So I'm going to get the my top 50 prospect rankings up on the screen here in just a minute. I appreciate those people who've already thrown in questions. I see people that are always quick to throw in questions, which I appreciate you guys so much. You're the best. Let me go ahead and share screen here. See if these prospect rankings pull up. If you guys let me know in the comments if you can hear me all right, if I sound fine. I have the mic set up. I typically when I'm hosting with a co-host, I can hop on before and they say, "Hey, you sound like crap," or "You sound good." But this time I have nobody to tell me that. So if you guys want to hop in the comments and tell me if I sound all right, let me know. That'd be super helpful. If not, I'm just talking to nobody. Garrett, I appreciate you. Thanks for letting me know I am loud and clear. So, so today, I don't know. I'm planning on going no more than an hour probably. I'll try to answer as many questions as I possibly can here in the chat. We'll see how many I get in and how long this actually takes. But like I said, I'll just go and try to answer as many questions as I can. So let's just run down the line here. We got an early question today from William Rofer. He asked, who gets an early look, who gets a cup of coffee, and who ends up in the starting lineup for the MLB squad this season? Honestly, this is really good. So I'm able to kind of go through my list here and kind of identify some of those guys. This is a pretty comprehensive question, which is always fun. I can go through a lot of these guys really and just kind of identify with the list being up here. I can just go through and identify who kind of fits each of these three categories. I'll start off with the guys who might get an early look. I think starting off at the top makes total sense here with PCA. I think that it'll be interesting to see if he wins the job in center field out of camp. I think that he'll probably have to put in a lot of work this offseason and look pretty damn good going into spring training next year in order to win the job as a starting center fielder in Chicago on opening day. That's I think he can probably afford to get a little more seasoning in at AAA, but I think we might see him early in the season, regardless of if it's opening day or not. Cade Horton, I don't think it's necessarily an early look. I've kind of gone on the record and said six or so starts in the minor league, so I guess it's pretty quick. Going down the list, I think that Matt Shaw maybe later in the year, potentially. Jordan Wicks, obviously, he'll be on the opening day starting rotation. We can see him. Ben Brown, I think Ben Brown is definitely on the short list of guys that if there's an injury in Chicago, he might get a call up to Chicago to kind of fill a spot in the bullpen potentially too. I think that might be a safe bet. So he might be an early look type of candidate here. Alexander Canario, I think that I'm I am willing to put money down that Alexander Canario wins an opening day roster spot over PCA. Not necessarily over PCA, but just like I'm more confident in PCA in Canario than PCA getting that spot. Matt Mervis is another early season candidate. I don't know how to look at the Matt Mervis situation entirely. I have him down here at 14. I think that's pretty safe in terms of where I kind of placed him. In my eyes, you can kind of see these little blue marks kind of delineating these tiers that I view these players in the organization. Really, honestly, I could probably have this tier below Alexander Canario, but I think that like the top 11 guys are kind of above, in my eyes, the rest of this group. And then I think Alexander Canario kind of is on a tier of his own, where I think he's a really solid player. I think he's better than the Hope, Mervis, Little, Wiggins type group. But I will say though that like I don't think he's at the level of Ballesteros and Triantos and Ben Brown. So Canario is just kind of by himself. Um, and then after that, it's like I have Zaire Hope. I'm the highest of anybody on Zaire Hope. That I may come back to regret that that ranking, but like given that we haven't seen hardly anything from Zaire Hope, but Matt Mervis, in terms of his ranking, like we've already seen him in Chicago. We already know he is good enough to be all-star, AAA all-star caliber, right? He's too good for AAA. But what can he do at the major league level, right? So I'm not necessarily like because he's already gotten that major league experience, like I'm not going to rank him below a Drew Gray. I'm not going to rank him below a Michael Arias, stuff like that. But Matt Mervis is a kind of a big question mark in and of himself. So, but we might see him early on if the Cubs don't go out and sign Rhys Hoskins or somebody like that. Luis Vasquez on the 40-man roster, always a guy we could see pretty early on. I doubt we do. Who else as we kind of go down this list here? I think that the guys closest to competing and getting early looks in Chicago are atop this list. I think that as you go down, Caleb Killian, we know we've seen him already, so he might be an early season promotion up to Chicago at some points. I think that pretty much covers the early candidates. Bailey Horn probably midseason. See what he can do back at AAA. I think that pretty much covers the early looks. I think as far as the who gets a cup of coffee and who ends up in the starting lineup for the MLB squad this season, I think that outside of those early candidates, I think that Cade Horton will kind of solidify his role in Chicago by midseason. I think that once he's up, and he'll be competing and making a playoff push with this roster. I think that he'll be in that rotation for the Cubs. Kevin Alcantara, I'm sure we'll talk plenty about Kevin Alcantara and Owen Casey here today because those names always go hand in hand. But I think both of those names, Alcantara and Casey, I think that I don't expect them to make their way to Chicago this year. Anything we get from them in Chicago is a complete bonus. And I think that with Owen Casey, I probably see him making his debut a little bit sooner, but I see him to kind of start the 2025 campaign. So Matt Shaw, I've kind of said that I think that he has a September call up in him for sure. I think I pretty much covered everybody else. Oh, I guess I skipped over Luke Little. Luke Little will be in Chicago. My prediction is come opening day. I think he'll be part of the opening day bullpen for Chicago for sure. And Luis Vasquez, really his profile, like because it's so defense oriented, we could see him at any point this season, right? Whenever the Cubs need to fill in, as far as a backup infielder, Luis Vasquez is your guy. I don't think that there's any more like seasoning they need to see from him because I think that like right now he's pretty close to like being at both his ceiling and his floor in terms of what he's going to be as a major league player moving forward, right? Like he's going to be there for defensive reasons, and anything else you get offensively is just like kind of icing on the cake. I know that we got a question about Luis Vasquez from Garrett Johnson here. I'll kind of get into that here. He says, Luis Vasquez gets the Cubs third baseman job by June 1st. Don't add me. I want to add you, Garrett. But I will say, I don't know. It's really, I think that it's really nice that Luis Vasquez is so damn good on defense at shortstop that I feel pretty confident that he can go and play third base pretty well. He can play second base pretty well. Like he's athletic enough, like he can play the outfield. He won't. You're losing value. Like he's so good on the dirt that you wouldn't play him in the outfield. But I think he's just like a freak of an athlete enough defensively that he could do that if you needed him to. So I think at third base though, like I, offensively, I'm just still not sure what to expect from Luis Vasquez defensively. Or sorry, offensively. I'm sorry, offensively from Luis Vasquez. I think that playing third base, you kind of expect an offensive output that Luis Vasquez can't possibly provide you. So if you're counting on Luis Vasquez to be your starting third baseman, then you're kind of punting on that offensive production at third base and hoping to get it from a position that you don't typically get offensive production from quite as much, right? So you're expecting top tier offensive production from first base, third base, which the Cubs don't really have, and then like right field, left field, right? So if you're not getting it from one of those positions, then you're hoping you're picking it up from shortstop or from catcher or from center field. And right now, like Dansby is a good defense, like a good defensive shortstop. He'll be average offensively, but like I don't think there's a guy at up the middle. I mean, so even Nico at second base, I don't think there's a guy up the middle that like is going to get you that production offensively that Luis Vasquez won't get you at third base. So I'd rather just Luis Vasquez be a defensive replacement and a good bench guy for the Cubs at multiple different positions, including shortstop, which is super valuable, obviously. So let's see what else we got here. Um, we got questions. We got Steven in the chat saying hi. Steven, you're the man. I appreciate you hopping on. Garrett said word on the street is that he's working with Dustin Kelly in Arizona. I assume he's referring to PCA here. PCA, yeah, there was a report from who was that from? Was it from Prospects or from The Athletic? I don't know. It was from somebody saying that PCA is down in Mesa working with DK, which is awesome, man. I think that like DK is an incredibly well-respected coach in the Cubs organization. I think that him getting that promotion up to the major league level was absolutely well-deserved based on everything I heard from his work in the minor leagues and in the organization as a whole. I think that it's awesome that he got that promotion. I think that PCA working with him in Arizona is like awesome. I think that's the move. That's terrific. I'll tell you what, like I mentioned earlier, I don't think that PCA comes out of spring training with the starting job in Chicago, but like if anybody's going to work hard enough this offseason to earn that spot, like it's Pete Crow Armstrong, man. Like the progress that he's made in such a short amount of time. Like remember, he's not even 22 years old yet. The progress he's made so quickly is wild to me. So I would not put it past him to come into spring training next year, guns a-blazing, going crazy. So yeah, Garrett says that it was that comment was the CHGO guys had the PCA working with DK in a Cubs Twitter in a Twitter thread, which I think that was in reference to somebody went on like the Score or something like that to say that they were quoting somebody from the Score. It might have been Jared Banner. I think it was Jared Banner who just got promoted up the line to assistant general manager of some sort. So yeah, that's terrific stuff. I don't know if this is going to end up going on the Cubs on Deck podcast feed. It might. I kind of like separating these out a little bit and having some things that are only on the YouTube page. Honestly, if you guys are on here and subscribe to Northside Bound on YouTube, I can't thank you guys enough. I've said it on the podcast before, but like the growth that we've seen on this channel is wild to me. It's crazy. I appreciate you guys so much for subscribing, commenting, liking it. If you guys could like the video down here while you're here, I've got a few of you here. If you could like the video, that would be awesome. And the way I'm looking at this is like I'm talking with you guys live, but my mindset is like this is going to go on the YouTube feed after the fact. And so like for you guys out there that are joining and watching later, not necessarily watching this live, hopefully I'm giving you some good stuff that's not necessarily goes bad in the matter of 5 minutes after I'm done recording this. So I got a question here, a comment here from Michael Eddy, who is also an avid question sender inner for the podcast, for YouTube, for all that good stuff. So thanks for commenting, Michael. And if you guys have more comments, be sure to throw them in the comments here below. Michael says every single ranking, no matter what Casey does, Alcantara is higher than him. Better game power at a higher level and improved his defense to playable at the corners. And there's El Jaguar at number 3. Yeah. So I think that this is an interesting comment because I think that like I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this. So the folks over at Northside Bound, including myself, have Kevin Alcantara ranked above Owen Casey here. I have him at 3, or I've Alcantara at 3, Owen Casey at 4. And I think that both Todd and Zumac both had Alcantara above Casey. I believe Rich Biesterfeld had Casey above Alcantara though. And honestly, like I think that we're getting close to the point where I see Casey ranked above Alcantara on the national publications more than the other way around. I've seen Casey ranked higher. I think Baseball America for sure has that. I think that Prospects Live also has Owen Casey above Alcantara. I'm not sure about Pipeline. I feel like Pipeline might have Alcantara above him, but I've seen it way more often. And like to me, it's so funny that like these guys will always be in the same conversation. They're the same age, obviously. Like Alcantara's a level below Owen Casey, but like they're the same age, acquired in the same general time frame as a part of trades. Both light tower power. Like it's there's a lot of similarities on why we have that conversation about Alcantara and Owen Casey at the same time. I get it, but like for me, that is the most difficult. Like you see, I have these tiers here. But like if you argue that Owen Casey should be ranked above Kevin Alcantara, I'm not gonna argue back. Like I'm totally game for that. Like I think that Owen Casey is what he did at 20 years old in the Southern League, where the first half of the season the balls were the baseballs were tacky, made it really difficult on hitters, showing the exit velocities that are through the roof. Like if you think Owen Casey is better, like all the power to. Like I'm not gonna argue against it. Like I think that like he is very very talented. For me, I keep falling back on it, and it's like it's an unexact science. But for me, Kevin Alcantara, he just like passes the eye test a little bit better. It's me putting on my scouting hat here, right? But I think that like part of it, like what I loved from Owen Casey last year, is that the exit velos were some of the best in all of Major League Baseball, let alone minor league baseball. And you're right, the defense improved drastically. Like I think that the defense is now average, closer to average, probably not average, but closer to average out in right field. I was the one like beating the drum. Like I know people were saying like move Owen Casey to first base, move him to first base, and like I was like beating the drum. It's like no, like this is a dude from Canada who's taken fly balls in warehouses inside, and all of a sudden he became a pro, and he wasn't great in the outfield. And people were like, "Oh, he can't play the outfield." Like, no, like he's still young. Give him a chance. I think he can be average, especially with the arm that he has out in the outfield. So that made me feel a whole lot better. But also, I thought he was more athletic on the base paths too. He's not going to go out there and steal you a bunch of bases, but like I thought the base running and the athleticism on the base paths looked a lot better from Owen Casey. So there's a lot to like about him. Um, Kevin Alcantara, I think that like he is a like true 5-tool player. I'm worried about the swing and miss on sliders out of the zone. It's going to come down to that with Kevin Alcantara. I think that like sliders out of the zone, and the long like the long arms and the big heights from Kevin Alcantara, fastballs on the inner half of the plate are going to be tough. He has fast enough hands to reach those inside fastballs, which is terrific and super fun. And if he can handle those, then like I feel even more confident. But for me, it's like Kevin Alcantara is outside of PCA, like he is the best outfield defender in the organization. Like he is a tremendous center fielder. Now, long term, I think he moves out to right field and he's great out there too. But like Kevin Alcantara has the defense. I think he has the speed on the base paths for sure. The pop is there. I think that the concept, like the pure hit tool, I think as long as he can handle sliders out of the zone and like know when to lay off of those, I think it's really, really good. So I'm less concerned about Kevin Alcantara striking out at a 30% clip at the major leagues. Obviously, there's more chance that he stalls out and doesn't make it to the major leagues than Owen Casey. But I think that for me, it's just the eye test. There's something about Kevin Alcantara that I just dig, and I I look back at like my rankings of Christopher Morel, and like I should have been higher on him given his pure athleticism and like how hard he can hit the ball and how he runs the bases and like just like that athleticism plays, right? And I think Alcantara has more athleticism than Owen Casey, and like I just trust a guy to adjust because better when he's more athletic because like the body allows him to do that. You know what I mean? So and I trust Kevin Alcantara to be able to adjust more than Owen Casey. But like, man, like if you're arguing that power, like exit velocity, is the best way to predict power at the major league level, then Owen Casey will be a 35 home run guy a year in Chicago. So yeah, man, I think that choose your fighter as far as Kevin Alcantara, Owen Casey, and for me, like I'm looking at Matt Shaw. I have Matt Shaw ranked sixth. Like that's probably one that's going to come back and hurt me later on, right? Is that I have Matt Shaw ranked sixth when I think that he has the highest floor of, I mean, really probably anybody on this list, but definitely among that second tier of guys, Alcantara, Casey, Rojas, and Shaw. So, yeah, it's and then you look one slot lower than Matt Shaw, and you got Jordan Wicks, right? And Jordan Wicks has already proven that he can get outs in Chicago, which is huge. So, yeah, man, I think that it's pretty telling that this organization has, in my eyes, Matt Shaw and Jordan Wicks ranked sixth and seventh, which those are guys that can do it at the major league level, probably as soon as this year, you know. So let me keep moving along here. I'm gonna one more time tweet out that I'm live here. Make sure that people are joining if they want to join. If you guys have questions, be sure to send them in, even if they're stupid questions. If you think they're dumb questions, they're not. I'll answer them. I promise. I swear. Let's see what we got here. All right. All right. Let's see what we got. So we got some questions in from Garrett. Asked, do I agree with the Joey Gallo comps that Owen Casey gets? No, I don't. I mean, like, I can see that. I don't know. I think that comps are always so hard. I think that, like, I try to avoid player comps as much as humanly possible, just because, like, I think that, like, people probably take, like, including myself, like when I hear a player comp, I take it way too, like, literally, you know? Like, I think that I'm hearing Owen Casey. It's like, if Owen Casey doesn't perform in the exact same ways that Joey Gallo does, then, like, is I don't know, is it a disappointment, or is it a perk? Is it, like, what is that? But yeah, I think that there's a lot of things that are very similar in the way that they play. But I, I think the light tower power. But you think about Joey Gallo, right? And he has, like, literally the best power in all of Major League Baseball, like in terms of, like, raw power, right? He hits balls harder than anybody else. Him and Aaron Judge, but he makes no contact. I think that Owen Casey will make more contact. I think that he will have a batting average closer to like 250 than Joey Gallo's, like, trying to get into the 200s at all, you know? So we got a question from Kurt, asking what we can expect from Jackson Wiggins this year, which is fun. I don't know, man. I'm honestly, I don't know the current status of him in terms of returning from injury. I think that we shouldn't expect him to be on an opening day full season roster. He'll probably, even if he was completely healthy, he probably still wouldn't be on a full season roster to start off the year because he's coming back from surgery. I think that, like, if he debuts midway through the season in 2024, probably gets that, like, cup of coffee in Myrtle Beach before being bumped up to South Bend, and then ultimately being bumped up to Tennessee. Maybe I think that's something that, like, would blow me away. I think if he can end the season in Double A Tennessee, then that is, like, the best possible scenario. Regardless of, like, numbers he puts up at that level or numbers he puts up in the lower levels. I think if the Cubs have enough confidence to send him up to Double A Tennessee, that's awesome. I think that the Cubs front office is just really, really, really high on Jackson Wiggins. I think that Zumac has thrown out there before that, like, the Cubs just think that they got Cade Horton just a few months earlier, as far as, like, that's how they describe Jackson Wiggins, and I can't really disagree with it. I'm excited to see what he does. I have him ranked there at 16, obviously. I think he kind of slots in well, in terms of pedigree, obviously being that higher draft pick, and uh, in terms of, like, how quickly he can bump up. By this time next year, I don't know. I don't know if we see a whole lot of, like, maneuvering as far as Jackson Wiggins goes. I think that, like, if he's in a top 10, he would have to really, really show out, to be in the top 10 of rankings come this time next year. And I don't think that there's anything that can really happen, in the 2024 season that you're like, oh, like, this guy sucks. You know, like, I don't think there's anything that can happen one way or the other that makes me, like, change Jackson Wiggins ranking up more than, like, I don't know, 5 to 8 slots. I think that if I can't really see him top 10. I can't really see him outside the top 25 either. So I think that we go into 2024 with very tempered expectations for Jackson Wiggins. All right, let's see what else we got here. All right, Garrett asked, if you traded for Logan Gilbert, what's your preferred package that gets the job done? Who from your top 10 would you be comfortable moving? Okay, so I'll lead off by saying I am so bad at trades. I'm so bad at trades. I don't because so much of it is like, how does the other team's front office value a player? And I don't know. Like, I can see how Logan Gilbert performed last year, and it's obviously strong, and he has years of control and all that good stuff. But I don't know how the Mariners front office views Logan Gilbert, so that's really tough. I think that it would probably, my guess off the cuff, I guess it would take somebody like Christopher Morel, somebody at the major league talent, and then a top 100 type of prospect in baseball. Like, not PCA or Cade Horton maybe, but like maybe you're looking at Morel and Alcantara and somebody else. I don't know. That's my first thought. As far as who from the top 10 I would feel comfortable moving. Okay. For the right price, pretty much anybody, I think, is my short way of answering this. Like, I would, prospects are for calling up to your major league team and succeeding, or making your major league team better by trades. That's what prospects are for. So like, nobody's untouchable. I think that PCA will be tough to move, because like he's probably, in terms of trades, maybe the most valuable player in your organization. I think that Justin Steele will be up there, obviously. Some of the guys that have signed extensions, like, because of their contracts, are by default a little less valuable. Yeah, I'd say that PCA and Justin Steele are probably two of the most valuable trade pieces you have in your organization. And so, like, it'd be tough to find a package for him. Cade Horton is the exact same way. That is tough, dude. Like, I think that I just don't really see a scenario where they could move on and trade Cade Horton. But I think that really any of these top 10 guys, like, I think that the most likely of the bunch, as I move this comment so we can see the full 10, I've got James Triantos down there. I think the most likely to be moved in a trade, depending on the package, would be Kevin Alcantara, Owen Casey, probably Ben Brown, and James Triantos. Right? I think that PCA, close to the major leagues, already been in the major leagues, your top prospect. Unlikely. Cade Horton, close to the major leagues, your arguably the top right-handed pitching prospect in all of baseball. Tough to move. Jefferson Rojas, like, what do you have? Like, you probably value, as the Cubs, Jefferson Rojas more than another team does. Matt Shaw, you just drafted him last year. Tough to move on from a guy like that. Jordan Wicks figures to play a pretty, not a major role, but figures to play a role in your starting rotation the entire year this year. Tough to move on from a guy like that. Jackson Ferris, kind of like Jefferson Rojas, where it's like, it's just the pitcher version of Rojas. Super young guy. You probably value him more than other teams do. And then all that leaves left is Kevin Alcantara, Owen Casey, Ben Brown, James Triantos. I think if the Cubs are making major trades this offseason that include prospects, those are the four names to watch of this bunch. I think that those are the four names to watch going down to, I guess you got Canario down at 12, that he's likely. But like, yeah, those are the four names to watch. I'd be shocked if PCA, Cade Horton, Jefferson Rojas, Matt Shaw, Jordan Wicks, Jackson Ferris, any of those guys get traded, I'd be pretty surprised, either because of their proximity and impact in Chicago, or because it's just like, you gotta trade a player that another team values as much as you or more than you. That's how you, quote unquote, win trades, you know? All right, let's see what else we got. Got a question from Donnie asking, who would you deal for Luzardo? I think I'll answer that the same way, the Logan Gilbert trade, right? It probably starts with major league talent, and then one or two of these guys in the top my top 10. You start there and then just kind of work down. You probably need to add even more pieces after that. Patrick Grant asked, where is David Bodie? I went, all right, so like, this is not top 50 prospects, so I won't go so super deep into this, but like, David Bodie's so interesting because, like, this is the last year going into 2024, last year of his like extension that he signed back in the day. He's being paid I think a little over $5 million to be off the 40 man roster and playing down in AAA Iowa. And it's like, yeah, it's not ideal that you're paying David Bodie $5 million to have that role, but like he's a good teammate. He is valuable depth for the major league team. He was decent offensively last year while playing more shortstop than he's ever played in his life. Um, I don't know, dude. Like it's not ideal that he's being paid $5 million to do that, but like in any other scenario, and he's off the 40 man roster, right? Any other scenario, like you'd love to have a guy like that. If you're paying him like even an expensive normal minor league deal, that is like the ideal setup to have David Bodie. It's just not great to have him as a $5 million guy doing that. So he doesn't have any trade value. Like a team wouldn't like, you're not really trading him to anybody because like a team wouldn't want to, like, you'd have to eat the entire contract and then not get anybody in return. You'd be like saving maybe a little less than $1 million. And like at that point, what is it? So yeah, I think that David Bodie has a lot of value in, there's a lot of guys coming up and going to be in Iowa. That's going to be in AAA Iowa that he can kind of teach and just make sure they improve and they're ready for the major leagues. Because I think if any guy can like train a guy to do that, that's a player. It's David Bodie. So, all right, I keep jumping around here. I need to go back to the beginning, see if there's any comments down at the beginning of these. Ba, 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 ba. We got. I think I addressed all those. We got one from William Rofer again, who says, should we believe the massive improvement we saw from Christian Franklin after that quick development list stay? Do we know what he actually changed? So I've got Christian Franklin there at 22. And I think that like if what he came back and did last year was legit, then obviously he's way too low on this ranking. I think I'm actually might be one of the high people over at Northside Bound in terms of where I rank Christian Franklin. The fan created poll had him down at 30, which I was shocked. I know that like Christian Franklin's been getting a lot of love on Cubs Twitter, and so I was expecting Christian Franklin to be a lot higher than 30 on the fan created list. But to answer William's question, do I believe in the massive improvement? Yeah, I think that like I think what we saw from him once he returned from the development list is closer to what I expected than the real struggle bus he was riding before that. He was drafted, I think he was a 4th-round pick, and there was a lot of hype surrounding him in terms of being a potential 2nd-round draft pick. And I think that the value that Christian Franklin has is that he's really good defensively in center field, and he has quite a bit of pop. What I did not expect from Christian Franklin was when he was drafted, the big concern was the swing and miss from him, particularly on high fastballs. He was struggling in college at Arkansas to keep up with the high fastballs, and the worry was that was going to continue, although he was putting in some serious work to kind of make that issue go away. But I posted in the article. I probably should have put the article link in the comments below or in this video description. I'll go back and fix that up if I can. But what I said there is that right now, like what he ended up doing last year was having one of the best swinging strike rates in the entire organization, and that I did not expect at all. And honestly, like I don't expect that to continue. I think that like for him to take his biggest weakness coming out of the draft and make it a plus, a positive in terms of how good he is a shocking kind of development. So I don't expect that to continue. I don't expect him to continue to have the slash line that he put up last year. That was wild. But I do believe in Christian Franklin being like a 4th or 5th outfielder in Chicago one day. I think that like if things continue to break right for him, I could see that. I think that like if you're hoping for a starting center fielder in the major leagues for years, like that's probably wishful thinking. Like he's an older guy. He was doing a lot of what he was doing in high A South Bend as a guy that was old for his level. Like let's wait and see. Let's wait and see him get kind of a real full season under his belt next year, because I'm excited to see what he does. Probably starting in Double A Tennessee next year. So Yeah, man, I think Christian Franklin ranked at number 22 is fun. I could see like he maybe more than a lot of some of these. I think Christian Franklin, Pedro Ramirez, Michael Arias. I think those three guys. Maybe, and I even throw Cole Franklin. Those four, right, like from 19, 21, 22, 23. I could see all four of those guys climbing up lists pretty rapidly come this time next year, or falling way down them. Like I could see Michael Arias succeeding in his return to South Bend in the rotation and like really making us believe like he is a starting pitcher. And then at that point, with that stuff and starting pitcher potential, like that's a top 10 pitcher in baseball. If Michael Arias comes out and struggles and gets demoted, whatever you want to call it, demoted down to the bullpen, and in high A, he's already a bullpen guy, then at that point, like he's closer to 40. So that's a big range from 10 to 40. You could say the same thing about Pedro Ramirez, right? Like he has done nothing but really like hit. Like the reason why Pedro Ramirez is ranked 21 is because he hits. He has produced at the plate. And he's been really good. If he gets up to South Bend next year, although he'll still be young, right? He'll still be only 20 years old. If he really struggles at the plate and doesn't have any power, because that's important for a guy that Pedro Ramirez is what 5'7" maybe, and not exactly a body that you believe will continue to develop more and more power. If he doesn't hit for any power, and guys challenge him in the zone more, and he doesn't walk and just he's not as good at the plate, then he drops way down list. If he continues to hit the way he did at Myrtle Beach, but just do even better outside of that rough ballpark to hit in Myrtle Beach, then he can climb up even farther. Like that's a big range for Pedro Ramirez. Christian Franklin the same way. Like is what he did last year legit? If it is, he's a top 15 guy. If it's not legit, if it was just kind of a fluke, then he's way down. Cole Franklin, the last guy that I mentioned here of this four, if Cole Franklin finally puts everything together, if he that fastball that's good enough, has some velo, the movement's good enough, the changeup is obviously terrific, the slider is improved, the curveball is used in the right ways, and he finds the zone more. If he puts all of that together, like we know he has the ability to do all of that individually. If he puts them all together, like he at that point is a top 12 pitcher in the or top 12 player in the organization. If he spends another year not being able to put it together in Double A, then he drops down pretty significantly. Like he's in the same range as like the Luis Devers on this list down at 40. So yeah, those are the four that like have the biggest range of potential outcomes in a short period of time, which is kind of wild. All right, what do we got here? What do we got? Kurt says hype up Hope. I get you're the high guy on him, but how can you have him at 13? Looks like an amazing athlete. Yeah, I think that with Zer Hope, there's always the risk, having not seen him play in full season ball yet, just going off reports, just going off draft profiles and stuff like that, that I am like way too early. Not even way too early, but I'm just like I'm too gung ho about where I have him ranked. Now, I don't mind being too early on a guy. I'm not concerned about that, because if Zer Hope goes and struggles next year, but it's just in terms of like struggles in terms of results, like if he's just not like, if the numbers aren't there in Myrtle Beach next year, but he doesn't look out of place, then I'll keep him like top 15. Like I'm not too concerned about that. And then if he'll ultimately like get there, then I feel really good about this ranking. If he comes out and looks like overmatched and I have to drop, the worst thing I want to have happen with when I'm doing these rankings, I don't want to rank Zer Hope at number 13, and then for some reason, whatever reason, insert reason here, I drop him down in the offseason or in the midseason rankings or next offseason rankings down to like 40, only for him to show out in the next couple of years after that, and then I have to raise him back up. That's too reactionary, you know. I kind of did that with Christian Hernandez, right? Look at Christian Hernandez, where I had him ranked. I don't know how high I had him ranked at one point, but I know top 10. I might have had him top 5 at some point. I'd have to go back and look, but I've dropped Christian Hernandez down here to 30, right? So that was obviously the results weren't there in terms of offensive production, but there was more like from like a scouting lens. I just didn't, there were him missing barrels more often. He just didn't look like he was quite there, you know? And so like if it was only results for Christian Hernandez, I probably wouldn't have dropped him way down to 30. But like it was more than just results that I saw with him. So Zer Hope, really good athlete, really, really good athlete. I think he can be a center fielder, a good defensive center fielder, with a decent arm, with a real decent arm, some speed, and the pop is absolute. His swing, like you guys know that I'm a sucker for guys that have great swings. The Cole Roederer Express, the Moises Ballesteros of the world, guys that have just pretty swings. Kevin Alcantara, beautiful swing from the right side. Zer Hope has another one of those beautiful, beautiful swings that I'm all in on. Yeah, I think that it also helps that with him being drafted, it's kind of wild. He was drafted in the 11th round of last year's draft, and I have him ranked at 13. I thought that like there was no chance that the Cubs would be able to sign Zer Hope with that 11th round selection. The fact that they got him out of his commitment was pretty wild. Um, I there's just a lot to like. He'll have to obviously make sure that the strikeouts stay down. He can't be whiffing at all the time. But something else that like really stands out for Zer Hope with me is like he didn't get into any games at Myrtle Beach, but he did get the call up to Myrtle Beach during their playoff run, which is absolutely crazy for a high school draft pick from that year's draft class to make it up to full season ball and there for the playoff run is why, and that really goes to show like what the Cubs think of him, even though he didn't get into any games. I think that they have a lot of faith in what he is and the maturity that he has for sure. Is Nazir Muley the guy in that last year that's most capable of making a huge jump this year? So that last group, Luis Rujano, Rafael Morel, Nazir Muley, Cole Roeder. Yeah, I mean, I think that most capable of making a huge jump. Yeah. I think that Luis Rujano, I could see making a huge jump. Muley, I could see making a huge jump. Yeah, I think actually those two guys. You have Jonathan Long and Brian Calmer sitting down here at 49 and 50. That they're just unique circumstances where they're guys that are old for their level. And if they continue to do even remotely close to what they did at Myrtle Beach up in South Bend and Tennessee, then yeah, like they get bumped up a little bit. But like you look at like Hayden McGeary, he killed it last year. And he's at 20. So like they have ceilings in terms of my rankings for them. I'm not going to rank a first baseman um, up north of like 15. They're not going to make a huge jump. You're right. Muley and Rujano are two of my guys that I could see making the biggest jump. Rujano he looks like a starting pitcher. Like he's built like a starting pitcher. He has a lot of stuff that plays like a starting pitcher. I think the arsenal of pitches is there for him for sure. And then Muley, like it's just like what is he? What's he about? Like are the Cubs gonna work him as like he's still coming back from surgery? So like, are they gonna work him as a two-way guy? Is he gonna play shortstop? Is he gonna DH and hit and still work on some pitching rehab? Like how do the Cubs treat him next year? And I think that like come this time next year, we still might not have answers in terms of like what is Nazir Muley. But like yeah, like if for some reason he comes out and like the Cubs say if he comes out next year and he's in Myrtle Beach playing DH and not even shortstop, like DH, because the Cubs say, you know what, like we're gonna keep working him as a two-way guy. Then like, dude, and he hits well in Myrtle Beach. It's like, dude, like what? Yeah, let's see him continue to rise up these lists. I think there's a good chance that he climbs for sure. Our guy, Rich Biesterfeld, the man with the camera down in Arizona, he made his list. He asked, "Where's Bryce Windham?" Great question, Rich. You guys know that I'm all aboard the Bryce Windham Express in terms of where I think he. How do I explain this? I think that like his value to this organization is way higher than he would ever get ranked in a prospect list. Um, he is already major league depth at catcher. He does not strike out. He is athletic behind the plate. He is A grade, like an 80 grade clubhouse guy. I think that like that is a guy that the Cubs try to keep in the organization for as long as humanly possible. And that has value, right? I think that like him being a catcher and him being able to play other positions besides catcher, like that's super valuable. So I don't know. I haven't ranked in terms of like I can't see Bryce Windham putting together a even one WAR season at the major league level because he's never going to be a starter at the major league level. I love Bryce Windham to death. He's never going to be a starter at the major league level, and so like there's just not value in terms of like the WAR, the wins you bring to a major league team that's going to get him ranked here in the top 50. I've been long. I was always saying Luis Vasquez, if he hit just a little bit, look how valuable he becomes. Well, that happened. I've been saying for just as long, if Bryce Windham can just hit for a little bit of power, not even asking for over the fence power, just like gap to gap power, then like that just increases his value significantly. So yeah, outside the top 50, but like you guys know how I feel about Bryce Windham. Like I think that he could impact Chicago this year. I think he could be there. We got an agreement with Rich. Wyndham seems like one of the guys who could, and it cuts off, be included maybe. Yeah, I think that like if you're looking at curating a list differently, yeah, I can see that for sure. Why any word on Ed Howard from Garrett? I know he just got back from Australia, and although limited, wasn't a great showing, at least offensively. Yeah, man, I don't. It's just I think I said in the write up about on my prospect rankings with Ed Howard. It's just like it's a post hype sleeper. If he can just come back and perform in any way, like it's just really the reason why he's here at number 46 on my rankings is because he was a first round pick. I'm not going to sugarcoat it and say it's like, oh, I still see some stuff with Ed Howard. He was a first round pick 2 years ago, right? Or 3 years ago, I guess at this point. He still gets included in my top 50 because he was drafted in the first round for a reason not too long ago. He's still young. He went through that brutal injury. Like, in terms of like what he's shown us on the field as a professional, no, like he probably doesn't belong in the top 50. It's just it's where he was drafted and the hope that somehow like he can get back to the reason why he was drafted in the first round. Christian Hernandez is ranked at number. Oh yeah, so he's ranked number 30. The reason why that probably did not show up is whenever I pop up one of these questions onto the screen, it blocks that bottom row of James Triantos at 10, Hayden McGarry at 20, Christian Hernandez at 30, Luis Devers at 40, Brian Calmer at 50. So yeah, Christian Hernandez is 30, just below his brother Alexis Hernandez. Yeah, I kind of went into some information, some detail on why I have him there. He can jump back up. I think he gets signed back to Myrtle Beach to start next year. And I think honestly, like I think that like him playing with his brother next year at single A Myrtle Beach, that could like motivate him in certain ways. You know, like my little brother is now here at the same level as me. Like that could like motivate him quite a bit, Christian, in terms of performing better and really like locking in and trying to get that promotion up to South Bend. We're going on 49 minutes here. We got some more questions here. All right. I'll hit on this. Donnie brings up Hope based on 43 plate appearances. Actually, for Zer Hope, it's based on 0 plate appearance. Like I that ranking is he could have gotten 0 plate appearances as a pro. Again, I'll go back. Like I liked that he was sent up to Myrtle Beach. That contributed. That shows confidence in him and who he is. But like, no, it's not about what he did offensively. In 43 plate appearances for Zer Hope. All right. Jeff asked if the top 3 graduate this year, who is a lower end list player that you think makes the jump in 2024? Good question. All right. I guess I'll ask Jeff if you can make a comment. Who is the lower end list player that you think can make the jump? Is it like make the jump to the major leagues in 2024 or graduate in 2024 or like jump up higher on this list in 2024? Because I can address all of those if you want. But I think this is a great question regardless. I'll come back to Jeff's because I think that's a good question. I want specifics so I can if he has it. Oh yeah, Donnie, James Triantos. Sorry, the bottom of the screen there. I'll remove these questions when I'm done with them. Nathan says Cole Franklin seems like a change of scenery guy. Tons of arm talent, but the Cubs can't figure him out. Yeah, okay. So I'm trying to figure out how much I not specifically about Cole here, but I think as far as Cole and some other players, I think that they can probably change the scenery. I think once a player is in an organization for long enough, whether it's the major league level or a prospect, but especially a prospect who's been in the organization for a while, wasn't selected in Rule 5 drafts, but is still here. I think like a change of scenery could do wonders for him. I think that like not only for I think that when we talk about like a change of scenery guy, we often look at the player and say, "Oh, like it would just motivate him differently if he was in another organization and like that's good for the player." But I think that like change of scenery is almost more often better because a different organization is looking at the player, right? The Cubs have all these like preconceived notions about who Cole Franklin is or any of these players. Like I don't want to like the question's about Cole, but my answer isn't only about Cole, I guess. I think the organization enters 2024 with all these preconceived notions about who a certain player is. And it's hard. Like if like think about us as fans and like we watch like Miles Mastroboni last year make that error early on in the season, first game of the year, early on in the season in right field. And that changed our mindset of Miles Mastroboni the entire year, despite the fact that he killed it in AAA all year long, right? Um, those preconceived notions are really tough for a prospect and like how we view him climbing the ladder. So I think that like another organization, regardless of like I know he wasn't drafted in the major league phase of the Rule 5 draft, but another team could see Cole Franklin and say like, yeah, that's a dude like I think is good. I think we can do X, Y, and Z with him and really get him to that level and put more effort into making him a major league baseball player. And I think that that would do wonders for Cole Franklin or like I said, a lot of other guys. And even guys that haven't necessarily like, quote unquote stalled out. Like even a guy like that's a top 10 prospect in the organization. I think that like James Triantos, number 10 ranked guy. I think that like if James Triantos got seen by another organization, I think it'd be great for him. Because I think he's a really solid player and just getting a different perspective is always good. All right. What else we got? Let's see if Jeff commented here. He did not. Okay, so I'll keep going. There's more questions. All right. Michael Eddy, who pitches in the most games in Chicago, Javier Assad or Ben Brown? The most games will be Javier Assad because he can so easily and he's so used to jumping back and forth between the rotation and the bullpen. He'll start off the year in Chicago. Um, it'll be Javier Assad. I think throws more innings and more games. But I think Ben Brown probably this year and maybe next year might fill a similar role as Assad or Wesneski or first couple of years Justin Steele, where he comes up, works out of the bullpen, works his way back into the rotation. I think that's a role that would fit Ben Brown super, super well. This year, I think it'll be Javier Assad. I'd love to hear your thoughts on Derniche Valdez, Fernando Cruz, and Angel Cepeda, and what to expect from them this year, and who you're the highest on. You'll see on this list, I don't have any guys that have not been stateside. Derniche Valdez, Fernando Cruz, Angel Cepeda, all of those guys are down. Well, Fernando Cruz is going to sign, and the other two are working down in the Dominican Summer League. I don't. I was talking with somebody on in the comments at Northside Bound about like why I don't rank those guys on my list, and I used to like I don't anymore, but I used to not even rank guys who hadn't appeared in full season ball. Even if you're stateside but down in Arizona, I used to not rank you because I needed to get eyes on you. And I'm not traveling down to Mesa all the time. I'm not able to see these guys in person. So if I'm not seeing them on MILB TV, then it's tough. But the more I can connect to people who have seen these guys live and seen them down in Mesa and stuff like that, the more confident I feel in ranking them. But I just don't have I don't have enough information, enough knowledge on the guys in the Dominican Summer League. So I know that there's like reports from Baseball America and MLB Pipeline when these guys sign. But like it's one thing to get those like that one paragraph snippet and then like a few clips of him throwing from shortstop over to first or a few batting practice swings. I just need to get more information. I'll admit that I don't have connections down in the Dominican Summer League to be able to feed me scouting information on these guys. So yeah, I think that like Fernando Cruz obviously is one of the top prospects in his international free agent class. I've from what little I've heard of these guys, I've heard Cepeda is a guy that I should keep an eye out for, and so I'm excited for all three of these guys. Really excited to see them play or make their way stateside. Vandy, the man, asked thoughts on Luis Rujano. I mentioned it earlier with Rujano. I think I really like the repertoire that he has. I think the fastball, slider, curveball, changeup combination is good. He doesn't get enough swings and misses, and he's a little too like he's just a young pitcher, right? He's kind of all over the zone. He's walking too many guys, but I really feel confident in his ability to be in the zone a little bit more this year and next year and the year after. And then I just really want to see a step up in terms of swings and misses on a lot of his pitches this year. I think I need more whiffs from him, but like the body's there, the pitch mix is there. I like him as a starting pitcher, and he's a young guy too. So yeah, I dig Luis Verano. Like he is. I'm just waiting to be able to jump him up my list. Chris Salmon asks, "Is Brettbaitman interesting at all?" Brettbaitman is interesting. I do dig Brettbaitman. Defensively, I think is great in center field. He's not too far out the top out of my top 50 prospects here. I think that defensively he's great. I think that offensively he doesn't have much pop, but he doesn't strike out much and he does walk. Like I think that like his deal is very straightforward. Like who he is very straightforward. I'm hesitant to rank a guy that has zero pop at the plate, zero power, because I've seen these guys are much more fun to watch play rather than like I would rank them high, right? Brettbaitman, DJ Artist was a guy I loved. I always loved watching DJ Artist. I think back to other defensive center fielders. Connor Myers was a guy I really dug. Like I just love watching play the game of baseball. Zach Davis was with the Cubs as recently as last year. Great defensively in center field. Fun as hell to watch run the bases. Moises, or sorry, not Moises Ballesteros. The opposite, literally the opposite of Moises. Brettbaitman is an all like if I was to create the most fun team to watch play baseball, Brettbaitman's on there. Like he's for sure on there, regardless of where I have him ranked. Right now, I have to pull up I have the whole system ranked. I probably have Bateman in the 60s or so. I'd have to go back and check, but fun player. Rich, going back to Zer Hope, Rich said that he watched Zaire in the Arizona Complex League. Such a positive attitude. Fans will love this kid. Love to hear that. That's always good to hear. Oh, this is a good one. Justin asked, after completing your rankings, what position or player types stand out as needing to be addressed in the next draft? Great question. So I think with you're not. I'm really careful about describing like drafting for need. So I think a lot of people hear drafting for need and just assume you're talking about, oh, the Cubs don't have a first baseman or a third baseman in Chicago right now. They need to draft a first baseman or third baseman. And like teams don't like they simply don't do that. Like that's not a thing. That's not a thing that teams do. But drafting for need in terms of like your organizational need absolutely is a thing, right? So if you have no third baseman in the organization, which is not really, I mean, I think I consider Matt Shaw obviously a third baseman long term. Although I guess after that, like there's not much in terms of third baseman. James Trout says you can consider that, whatever it may be. But I'm using third base as an example, right? If you have no third baseman in the organization, yeah, like you might go after a few more third basemen in a draft, right? To just to fill out the depth of the organization and like not only be able to play those positions throughout the minor leagues, but like give you more of a shot of developing a third baseman long term in your organization to play at the major league level. So, yeah, looking at the position or player types that stand out as needing to be addressed in the next draft, I think that like I believe a lot in the Cubs' ability to develop college pitchers into being something in terms of depth in the organization, right? You look at the 2022 draft, and you got guys like obviously Cade Horton at the top. But I guess the last few drafts in general, you got Cade Horton that I have ranked at 2. You have Jordan Wicks that I have at 7. You have let's go down the list here. You have Brody McCullough at 24. You have Will Sanders at 32. I missed Jackson Wiggins at 16. Brandon Birdsell at 34. You got who else you got? Connor Noland at 48. Frankie Scalzo at 47. And then outside the top 50, the Nick Holes of the world, the other guys like that. Like I have a lot of confidence in their ability to continue to draft and develop those guys. So I'm curious to see what they go to next. As like, will they continue to draft a lot of these college pitcher arms that they can kind of latch on to one unique skill set that they have? Like with Connor Noland and Brandon Birdsell, it's the ability to find the edge of the zone but stay in the zone and throw a lot of strikes. With a guy like Jackson Wiggins, it's like that peak is there, right? With Brody McCullough, it is finding the edges of the zone. It's having that unique delivery. Frankie Scalzo, it is the ability to spin the baseball, fastball, slider, really good ability to spin the baseball. So I'm curious to see, like, this doesn't really answer Justin's question, and I don't know that I can answer the question. I have to dig into it a lot deeper, and I can't answer it here in a couple minutes, but I'm curious to see if that's a trend they continue to go after. Will they continue to draft college arms that they really like and think they can develop into a guy that helps at the major league level, or like just is depth at the minor league level? Because that's going to be huge. All right. We got a few more here. I'm already past an hour, so I'm not going to go a whole lot longer. Garrett says Brettbaitman reminds him of Darius Hill. Yes, that's another example of a guy that's all contact, no power for the most part. Brettbaitman's better on defensively in center field, but like his contact, they're different players. But in terms of like the excitement level, like what makes them fun to watch, yeah, like Darius Hill is fun to watch. All right, I think you guys can send in some last minute questions here, and I'll take them for sure. In the meantime, I'm going to go back to this question that Jeff Rogowskis asked. If the top 3 graduate this year, who is a lower end list player that you think makes a jump in 2024? So I guess I'll address this in multiple different ways because I can. This is my show. I'm the only person recording. So no one's here to compete and tell me I'm wrong. All right. So assuming PCA, Cade Horton, and let's assume PCA and Cade Horton graduate from prospect status this year. Who is somebody else lower tier that I think can make the jump up to potentially graduating at the major league level? Let's look at it that way first. So I don't see any of this range graduating. I kind of let off the episode talking about this, but maybe I need to look at somebody who might be more of a surprise pick who could graduate. Ben Brown probably is not a surprise pick. Neither is Jordan Wicks or Alexander Canario. Matt Mervis should graduate. Luke Little will graduate very soon. Man. I think everybody that we think might graduate will. BJ Murray. I think BJ Murray is my pick. I can see BJ Murray. Actually, you know what I've said before? I think that, like, looking at the Cubs, if the Cubs don't make a move for a third baseman in the offseason in terms of major league level, like, you're looking at like starting off the year with Patrick Wisdom and Nick Madrigal at third base. If Christopher Morel isn't playing there, that's a bigger discussion for another day. But if you have Wisdom and Madrigal at third base, I think that, like, if BJ Murray continues to like mash down at AAA, I think that BJ Murray could be a really good example of a guy that really bridges well at third base to Matt Shaw. If Matt Shaw comes up in September, I think that I think that BJ Murray could be a guy that we see in Chicago in middle of the summer, in June or July. And if he's up in June or July and really like starts at third base for the Chicago Cubs, maybe not the long-term answer at third base for the Cubs, because maybe Matt Shaw is that answer. But BJ Murray could absolutely graduate this year. I think that's my pick in terms of graduation. If we're looking at it from the perspective of graduate in terms of prospect list and who is going to be a top 3 guy on the prospect list if PCA and Cade Horton graduate, I think you're looking at Kevin Alcantara, Owen K, like just assuming everybody kind of shifts up, these 3, Alcantara, Casey, and Rojas are your top 3. I could really, really, really see Rojas jumping up and being the number 1 ranked prospect in the Cubs system come this time next year. I think Rojas is my number 1 guy. I could see Matt Shaw being the number 1 guy. I could see any of these 4 players here being the number 1 ranked. I think that anybody, actually, a better way of putting it, anybody outside of these 4, Kevin Alcantara, Owen Casey, Jefferson Rojas, Matt Shaw. And yeah, I think anybody outside of those 4 that's ranked the number 1 prospect this time next year, I would be shocked. It would have to be a wild, wild year from like Jackson Ferris making it up to AA and killing it and proving that he can go longer into starts. Like it would be wild if anybody outside of those 4 became the number 1 prospect in the system once next year, once PCA and Cade Horton graduate. Even like whatever the number 1 draft pick is, our draft pick this offseason or this upcoming season, I can't even see that guy jumping any of these 4 guys. I think these are your 4 you're looking at as the top 4 in the organization, or as the top 4, but more importantly, the number 1 prospect in the organization come next year. All right, see if we got any more before we wrap this up. Oh, we did get some more questions here. All right. We got PCA. Donnie says PCA 2025. Yeah. I mean, I think he'll be up in Chicago in 2024. I think that 2025 as the year that PCA like figures it out and figures out how to be a starting center fielder in the major leagues. Yeah, like that. We shouldn't expect PCA, like we should not expect a 22-year-old to come up next year in 2024, even as a number 1 prospect in the organization, and be like the guy, like have it all figured out. Like if we're doing that, like those are just unrealistic like expectations for a guy who's so young and not yet figured it out. Like so little time in the minor leagues, like. But if he, the nice part about PCA is that like he can play the entire unit. Like even if he wins the starting job come opening day in center field this upcoming year in 2024, say he does, right? If he can just keep playing tremendous defense in center field and just struggle, like work through some things at the plate, if the Cubs give him the leeway to just be valuable as a defensive center fielder and like learn how to hit the entire year long, I would love that. Because like, all right, then you're just like letting him learn, and then come 2025, he will have learned, and now give me the real starting center fielder, like the real PCA come 2025. Kurt says, could PCA be Corbin Carroll? Could he? In theory, like yeah, I think in theory he could. Should we? I guess over the course of his career, like maybe. Will he come up and be the runaway rookie of the year and receiving MVP votes in 2024? No. I don't think he will or should or could. I think that he can be a good defensive center fielder and have some pop, which is good. All right. Let me address just a couple more of these because you guys are the best in sending these in. Kurt says, who can make the jump to top 10 by the end of the year? All right, let's see what we got. Jump into the top 10 by the end of the year. Drew Gray, and assuming outside of like Ballesteros, Canario might have graduated. Ballesteros, like that's just jumping up. That's just a few grad. Actually, let's look at it this way, right? So, assuming you have graduations from PCA, Cade Horton, Jordan Wicks, Ben Brown. What was that, 4? Yeah, 4 guys graduate. Okay, so then that enters Moises Ballesteros, Zaire Hope, graduate, Jackson Wiggins, and Drew Gray. So there you go. There's the 4 guys that enter just based off graduations, right? So then we're looking at 18 and below. Guys ranked 18 and below who could jump into the top 10. Luis Vasquez, I'm gonna say no. Michael Arias is that safe? Is that not the safe bet? Not the safe bet. Michael Arias is that fun bet where it's like if he's a starting pitcher, like yeah, like if he learns how to pitch a little bit better next year, like that's the dude. That right there is the guy, Michael Arias. But like I said, he could be down in the 40s if he doesn't figure it out. So my safest bet, like my safe is a tough word because it's all so tricky. I don't know, dude. This is tough. I think that I'd love to see Brody McCullough take that next step. That'd be fun. That'd be a good one. I think you're probably looking at younger guys, right? Because like for the most part, I mean, because Hayden McGeary, like he just older like Hayden McGeary and BJ Murray and Cole Franklin even and Christian Franklin even and Brennan Davis, like these guys, like we kind of know what they are. So it's tough for them to jump all the way into the top 10. So it'd have to be like a high riser, a quick mover. Um and then at that point, you're looking at like Luis Verano or like Will Sanders if he shows out. If Will Sanders comes out and really shows out, like that's a guy. Um Yeah, that's tough, man. I think that like this is why I'm looking at this and like it's saying like I think the depth isn't quite there. Like I'd actually take the depth in the organization this time last year over this year. I think there's more guys that in terms of like are like 35 grade players in the organization, but in terms of like guys that I could see making that next big jump. This time last year we had Jefferson Rojas, we had Jackson Ferris, we had James Triantos and Moises Ballesteros and Luke Little and guys like that were like, all right, let's see them take that next big jump. Um, I'm not seeing that as much with some of these guys that we have like ranked 19 through 50. You know, this is a deep question from Michael Eddy. I like it. What was the reason for Justin Steele and Christopher Morel having way more success than their prospect rankings would indicate? Was it a big command improvement from Steele? Has Morel's hit tool improved? I'll say with Justin Steele, it was just like I think that the big thing with Steele is that pitchers are wonky, like right, like there's no such thing as a pitching prospect. Um, Justin Steele was injured for a lot of his prospect life. He was a guy that was fastball, curveball. Like his curveball was his go-to pitch. Now you're looking at him; he's a two-pitch guy that has a cutting fastball, a cut ride fastball, and a slider. And he's just a different player entirely. And he found that command and all that good stuff. So, yeah, just a different pitcher. Like Adbert Alzolay is my go-to in terms of like, there's no such thing as a pitching prospect because Adbert Alzolay is not even remotely the same pitcher that I watched pitch in the minor leagues for 4 years. Like it's not the same player, not even remotely the same player. So like that's the deal with Justin Steele. He's just different. Like you get different coaching, you add different pitches, you subtract different pitches, you change your mechanics. Like I can't. It's tough to predict that stuff. You know what I mean. Like it's really tough. Christopher Morel learned how to walk all of a sudden. I think that was the thing with Christopher Morel. Like not that he's walking a ton, but like the dude didn't walk at all. I think when his time in like, I don't want to throw the stat, but I will because I don't remember it entirely. But like his time in short season Eugene back in the day, like I think like he got over 100 plate appearances, like well over 100, and he walked like twice, maybe. Like he never ever walked, and it's like you can hit the ball crazy hard, but if you refuse to draw a walk, then you can only have so much value, you know. So like he learned how to walk, and that propped up the on base percentage. That meant he was more selective in hitting the pitches that he knew he could drive, and that's just like not a skill that I can really predict, right? I can predict a guy learns how to hit the ball in the air a little bit better, and that exit velocity plays, right? Like Hayden McGeary, he hits the ball hard as hell. If he can go from hitting the ball on the ground at 118 miles an hour to hitting the ball in the air at 113 miles an hour, then like that's awesome. That's super valuable. If he can do that, I gotta account for that. Christopher Morel, like you can't predict a guy is going to start walking all of a sudden, and he definitely did. All right, last question. Actually, last question. I'm an hour and 15 minutes. It's too long. Last question, Garrett Johnson, does Casey Opitz have an MLB future? Yeah, I think that I think that I view him in a lot of the same ways as I view Bryce Windham. He hasn't hit, he won't hit, he even less than Bryce in some capacities in terms of his hitting. Casey Opitz, the organization loves Casey Opitz. The players love throwing to Casey Opitz behind the plate. He will also be kept in the organization as long as humanly possible. If he can hit a lick, then and continue to refine those skills behind the plate, then yeah, like there's a chance he makes it up to Chicago just because like that's a valuable. Like we know the Cubs value defensive catchers, value catchers that manage a pitching staff well and are great clubhouse guys, and like that's it for Casey Opitz. Like he does that so well. So yeah, I'm gonna say yeah, like he could have an MLB future, but like he's not again not a top 50. I don't think I have Casey Opitz ranked as a top 70 guy in the organization. So it's just like when you don't hit, it's hard to rank a guy like that, you know. All right, guys, that's all I've got. I've still got quite a few of you guys on the live stream, and I appreciate you guys tuning in and listening. I'll plug some stuff real quick before I let you go. I've been going for an hour and 15 minutes. I'm sure you're sick and tired of hearing my voice. Go check out these lists over at Northside Bound. We got, like I said, six different lists. It's my list, Greg Zumac's list, Todd Johnson's list, Rich Biesterfeld's list, our cumulative list for all of us, plus our fan rankings. All of those are up over at Northside Bound. Go check those out. Really appreciate you guys reading. Really appreciate you guys supporting this. Remember, click the like button down below. Subscribe if you could. We like the likes go a long ways in kind of growing this channel. And I appreciate you guys tuning in. It's meant a ton. It's meant a lot to have you guys support and doing this in the off season. No actual prospect action going on. We know the Cubs aren't doing anything as far as signing guys. So appreciate you guys tuning in. Go check out the podcast. If you're new to the channel, go check out the Cubs on Deck podcast. Actually, we're coming out with a new one tomorrow. We're dropping this. I don't know when you guys are listening, but on Tuesday, December 19th, the Cole Roederer interview will go live. You guys, he's a friend of the show. Everybody loves Cole Roederer. He's a 40th, or sorry, I have him ranked as where do I have him? 39th ranked prospect in the organization. His interview will go live. We went over an hour, just me and him chatting because he's such a good dude. Be sure to check that out over on YouTube or any podcasting platform where you listen to Cubs on Deck. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we'll talk to you guys soon.